Millionaire takes a cab and is shocked to discover that his driver is the black single mother. Rain pelted against the windshield of Soraya Wells' taxi, creating a rhythmic symphony that had become the soundtrack of her Seattle nights. Her dark fingers drummed against the steering wheel as she navigated the slick streets, the city lights reflecting off the wet asphalt like scattered stars. Another Friday night, another 12-hour shift. But that's what it took to keep food on the table and maintain the delicate balance of being both mother and provider. Just 2 more rides, she whispered to herself, glancing at the photo of Myla tucked into her dashboard. Her daughter's gap-toothed smile never failed to give her strength, even on the longest nights. At home, Mrs. Rodriguez from next door would be tucking Myla into bed, probably reading her favorite story for the 100th time. The thought brought both comfort and a familiar pang of guilt. The dispatch crackled to life. "Pick up at the Emerald Tower, premium client." Soraya's eyebrows raised slightly. The Emerald Tower meant money, and money meant better tips. Copy that. En route. As she pulled up to the gleaming skyscraper, its green-tinted windows disappearing into the misty night sky, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was different about tonight. The doorman hurried out with an umbrella, shielding a tall figure in an expensive suit. The back door opened, bringing with it a gust of rain-chilled air and the subtle scent of sandalwood cologne. Soraya's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror, a routine gesture that turned into a moment frozen in time. 7 years melted away in an instant. Daxton Pierce. Her hands tightened on the steering wheel, knuckles pressing against dark skin. The same chiseled jaw, those intense grey eyes, that air of quiet confidence. He looked exactly as she remembered him from that night, the night she'd rather forget, when she'd been at her lowest, and he'd been an unexpected guardian angel. "Downtown Marriott, please," he said, his attention focused on his phone, not even glancing up. He hadn't recognized her. Why would he? She'd been just another face in his world of endless charity cases. "Yes, sir," she managed, her voice steady despite the thundering in her chest. As she pulled away from the curb, memories flooded back unbidden. 7 years earlier, the restaurant had been packed that night, filled with Seattle's elite. Soraya, then a waitress working 2 jobs to put herself through college, had been carrying a tray of champagne glasses. She'd tripped, a simple misstep that had changed everything. The glasses had shattered, champagne had soaked a society woman's designer dress, and Soraya's world had imploded in a cascade of cruel words and humiliation. Then he'd stepped forward. Daxton Pierce, already making headlines as the young tech genius set to inherit Pierce Industries, had diffused the situation with a few quiet words and a generous gesture. He'd helped her up, ensured she kept her job, and disappeared back into his world of privilege and power. Now here he was, 7 years later, in her taxi. The irony wasn't lost on her. "Interesting weather we're having," his voice cut through her thoughts. "Small talk, the universal language of taxi rides. Seattle's specialty," she replied, keeping her tone professional. Through the mirror, she watched him finally look up, their eyes meeting briefly. Something flickered across his face. Confusion, perhaps recognition, but it passed quickly. "You seem familiar," he said slowly, leaning forward slightly. "Have we met before?" Soraya's heart skipped a beat, but years of hardship had taught her to wear a mask of composure. "I've been driving for a while. You might have been in my taxi before." It wasn't a lie, not exactly, but it wasn't the truth either. The truth was messier, more complicated. The truth involved a young woman's shattered dreams, a pregnancy that had derailed her plans, and years of fighting to survive in a city that showed little mercy to single mothers. "No, it's something else," he persisted, but his phone buzzed, drawing his attention away. "Excuse me, I need to take this." As he spoke quietly into his phone, Soraya navigated through downtown Seattle's rain-slicked streets, past the same buildings she passed every night. But tonight, they seemed different, as if the universe had shifted slightly on its axis. A child's laughter from the sidewalk caught her attention, a little girl holding her father's hand, sheltering under an umbrella. Myla's face flashed in her mind, her daughter, her miracle, the reason she kept pushing forward. What would Daxton Pierce, with his billion-dollar empire and perfect life, think if he knew she had a 5-year-old who believed in unicorns and insisted on wearing mismatched socks? "Just here is fine," Daxton said, as they approached the hotel. Soraya pulled smoothly to the curb, the wipers continuing their steady rhythm against the relentless rain. He leaned forward to pay, his cologne once again filling the small space. As he handed her his credit card, Their fingers brushed briefly. A jolt of electricity seemed to pass between them, and this time when their eyes met in the mirror, she knew he felt it too. "What did you say your name was?" he asked, his voice softer now. "I didn't," she replied, processing his payment with slightly trembling fingers. "It's Soraya. Soraya Wells." The name hung in the air between them. She watched his face through the mirror, saw the exact moment recognition dawned in his eyes, the slight widening of his gaze, the parting of his lips, the sharp intake of breath. "The crystal room," he said quietly. 7 years ago. The champagne tray. Soraya's heart thundered in her chest. "You remember?" "I never forgot," he admitted, his eyes holding hers in the mirror. "You disappeared after that night. I looked for you." The confession hung heavy in the air, accompanied by the steady drumming of rain on the roof. 1,000 questions danced on the tip of her tongue, but none made it past her lips. What could she say? That life had taken her down paths she never expected, that the bright-eyed college student he'd met that night had been forced to grow up too fast, too soon. A car horn blared behind them, breaking the spell. Daxton glanced back, then at his watch. "I have a meeting," he said, reluctance evident in his voice. "But Soraya, I'd like to talk properly." She should say no. Every hard-learned lesson screamed at her to maintain the boundary between their worlds, but something in his voice, in the way he said her name, made her hesitate. "I can't," she said finally. "Some stories are better left in the past." He reached into his jacket, pulling out a business card. "The past has a way of catching up to us," he said, placing the card on the center console. "When you're ready to talk, call me, please." Then he was gone, disappearing into the rain with only a lingering trace of sandalwood to prove he'd been there at all. Soraya sat motionless, staring at the elegant card with its embossed lettering. Her phone chimed, a text from Mrs. Rodriguez. "Myla says goodnight, mamita. She drew you a picture." Reality crashed back in. She was a single mother with 3 jobs and endless responsibilities. Daxton Pierce lived in a world of board meetings and billion-dollar decisions. Their paths had crossed twice now. Coincidence or fate, it didn't matter. Some doors were better left closed. But as she pulled away from the curb, his business card burning a hole in her pocket, Soraya couldn't shake the feeling that this rainy night in Seattle had just changed everything. Again, the city lights blurred through her windshield, and somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled across the sky. Seattle's rain continued to fall, washing away the past and perhaps, though she didn't want to admit it, clearing the way for something new. Daxton Pierce stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office, watching Seattle's endless rain paint patterns on the glass. 3 days had passed since that night in the taxi, and he couldn't shake the image of Soraya's eyes in the rearview mirror, proud, guarded, and holding secrets he couldn't begin to understand. "Mr. Pierce," his assistant's voice pulled him from his thoughts. "The board is waiting." He straightened his tie, a gesture more habitual than necessary. "Tell them I'll be there in 5 minutes." Alone again, he pulled out his phone, thumbing through the ride receipt from that night. Soraya Wells. He'd had his team do a basic background check, standard procedure for anyone who entered his orbit. Single mother, multiple jobs, no criminal record, a life of quiet dignity and hard work. But the data couldn't tell him what he really wanted to know. What had happened to the bright-eyed young woman who'd captured his attention 7 years ago? Why did she disappear? And why did her absence haunt him all these years? Across town, Soraya was braiding Myla's hair for school, her fingers weaving intricate patterns while her daughter chatted about her upcoming science project. "And Ms. Kennedy says we can bring a parent to help present," Myla said, bouncing slightly with excitement. "Can you come, Mummy? Please?" Soraya's hands stilled for a moment. Tuesday morning, she'd have to switch shifts at the diner and reschedule her taxi runs. "What time is it, baby?" 9 o'clock. "And we're doing all about rain and weather and stuff. It's gonna be amazing." Soraya smiled, securing the braid with a purple elastic, Myla's current favorite color. "Yeah, then I'll be there." Her daughter spun around, throwing her arms around Soraya's neck. "You're the best mommy ever." As Soraya held her daughter close, inhaling the sweet scent of coconut shampoo, her eyes fell on the business card sitting on her dresser. She hadn't thrown it away, despite telling herself to do so a dozen times. Daxton Pierce's name gleamed in silver lettering, an unwelcome reminder of a world she couldn't afford to dream about. "Myla, baby, time for school," she said, breaking the embrace. "Got your homework?" "Yes, and look, I drew a picture of us." Myla pulled a slightly crumpled paper from her backpack. 3 figures stood under an umbrella, a tall one with dark curly hair, a small one with braids, and, "That's you, that's me, and that's the nice man who helped us at the grocery store yesterday." Soraya's heart skipped a beat. The nice man had been Daxton, appearing like an apparition in the produce section. He'd reached the last box of Myla's favorite cereal from the top shelf, handed it to them with a warm smile, and disappeared before Soraya could process what had happened. "Baby, remember what we said about talking to strangers? But he wasn't a stranger, Mommy. He knew your name." The innocent observation hit Soraya like a physical blow. Of course, Myla had noticed. She noticed everything. After dropping Myla at school, Soraya headed to her morning shift at Riverside Diner. The rain had finally let up, leaving behind a grey sky that matched her mood. "You look like you've seen a ghost," Laurel, her closest friend and fellow waitress, said as Soraya tied on her apron. "Something like that," Soraya muttered, then quickly filled Laurel in on the taxi ride and grocery store encounter. "Hagatlas, this is not a coincidence," Laurel declared, her green eyes wide. "This is fate knocking on your door with a golden hammer." "This is a rich man with too much time on his hands," Soraya corrected, arranging sugar packets with unnecessary precision. Men like that, they see something they can't have and it becomes a challenge. Once they get it, they move on. "Or maybe he's been thinking about you for 7 years, just like you've been thinking about him." "I haven't." "Please," Laurel cut her off. "I've heard the story of the kind stranger at the Crystal Room at least once a year since we met. You don't forget someone who shows you genuine kindness when the world's being cruel." Before Soraya could respond, the door chimed. Her heart nearly stopped. Daxton Pierce walked in, looking impossibly polished in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Their eyes met across the diner, and for a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. "Well," Laurel whispered, "speak of the devil, and he shall appear, wearing Tom Ford, no less." "I can't," Soraya began, but Laurel was already steering her toward his table. "Your section, honey." "Better not keep him waiting." Daxton stood as she approached, a gesture so old-fashioned it caught her off guard. "Good morning, Soraya." "Mr. Pierce," she kept her voice professionally neutral, "welcome to Riverside Diner." "Daxton, please." He smiled, and something in her chest tightened. "I hope you don't mind me stopping by. I had a meeting nearby and you just happened to choose the most out-of-the-way diner in Seattle." The words came out sharper than intended. His smile faltered slightly. "Actually, I asked my driver to follow your taxi this morning. I needed to see you." The honesty of his admission stunned her. "Why?" "Because I have questions. Because you've been on my mind for 7 years. Because when I saw you again in that taxi, it felt like—" "Your coffee," she interrupted, her hands shaking slightly as she poured. "Would you like to order breakfast?" He accepted the deflection with grace, ordering eggs Benedict and fresh fruit. As she turned to leave, his hand caught her wrist, gentle, barely a touch, but it sent electricity through her body. "Have dinner with me," he said softly. "Just dinner. Just talk." "I can't." "I have a daughter." "I know, Myla, right? Bring her along." Soraya pulled her hand away. "You don't understand my life. It's complicated. Then help me understand." His grey eyes held hers, earnest and intense. "Saturday evening. I'll send a car. You choose the restaurant, anywhere you and Myla feel comfortable." A dozen reasons to say no crowded her mind. But before she could voice any of them, she heard herself say, "I'll think about it." His smile returned, brilliant and genuine. "That's all I'm asking for." Throughout the rest of her shift, Soraya felt his eyes on her. He lingered over his breakfast, laptop open but largely ignored. When he finally left, his tip was more than generous, and beneath it, a handwritten note. "Some people come into our lives for a reason, some leave for a reason, and some return to remind us that not all endings are final." That evening, as Soraya helped Myla with her science project, her daughter suddenly asked, "Mommy, do you believe in magic?" "What kind of magic, baby?" "Like in my books. When people are meant to find each other, and they keep meeting even when they're not trying to." Soraya looked at her daughter, so young, yet sometimes so wise, and thought about coincidences and fate, about rain-soaked nights and chance encounters, about a business card she couldn't bring herself to throw away. "I believe," she said carefully, "that life sometimes has plans we don't understand." "Like Daddy?" Myla's voice grew quiet. Was he part of the plan? Soraya's heart clenched. Xavier's abandonment had left scars that still hadn't fully healed. Some people are in our lives to teach us lessons, baby, to make us stronger. And some people come back, Myla said, echoing Daxton's note with uncanny timing, like the nice man from the store. Soraya pulled her daughter close, breathing in her innocence, her hope, her unshakable belief in magic and happy endings. Maybe, baby. Maybe. Later that night, after Myla was asleep, Soraya finally allowed herself to look at Daxton's business card again. The silver lettering caught the lamplight, seeming to shimmer with possibility, or perhaps warning. She thought about Xavier, about broken promises and shattered dreams, about the walls she'd built to protect herself and Myla, about the way Daxton looked at her, not with pity or conquest, but with something that seemed dangerously like understanding. Her phone sat heavy in her hand as she typed out a message. Saturday, 6 p.m., Harvey's Family Restaurant on Madison. Just dinner, just talk. His reply came almost instantly. I'll be there. Thank you for giving me a chance to understand. Soraya set her phone down and went to the window. Seattle's perpetual rain had returned, drumming against the glass in a rhythm that seemed to match her heartbeat. Somewhere out there, in a penthouse high above the city, Daxton Pierce was probably looking at the same rain, thinking about the same dinner, wondering about the same possibilities. Just dinner, she whispered to herself. Just talk. But as she crawled into bed, Soraya couldn't shake the feeling that she was standing on the edge of something much bigger than a simple dinner conversation. Something that could either heal old wounds or create new ones. Something that felt terrifyingly like hope. Saturday arrived wrapped in Seattle's signature mist, the kind that wasn't quite rain but left everything with a gleaming sheen. Soraya stood before her mirror, scrutinizing her reflection while Myla bounced excitedly on the bed behind her. You look like a princess, Mommy, Myla declared, admiring Soraya's simple navy dress, a remnant from better days, preserved carefully in the back of her closet. And you, my little scientist, look perfect, Soraya smiled, taking in Myla's carefully chosen outfit, a purple dress with tiny stars, paired with her favorite silver shoes. They'd spent an hour getting ready, Myla insisting on special occasion hair, matching braids for both of them. A knock at the door made Soraya's heart jump. She'd expected a text, not a personal escort. Opening the door revealed a woman in a crisp suit, her warm smile offsetting her professional demeanor. Mrs. Wells, I'm Amara Winters, Mr. Pierce's personal assistant. The car is ready whenever you are. Soraya's instinct to cancel flared up, but Myla was already rushing forward, enchanted by Amara's elegant appearance. Your earrings are so pretty. They look like raindrops. Amara knelt to Myla's level, her professional facade softening. Thank you. I love your dress. Those stars remind me of the night sky. In the elevator, Soraya caught fragments of their conversation, something about constellations and science projects. Amara spoke to Myla with genuine interest, not the condescending tone adults often used with children. The car waiting outside wasn't the flashy luxury vehicle Soraya had expected, but a discreet black SUV with tinted windows. As they settled into the plush leather seats, Soraya noticed a small package on the middle seat. From Mr. Pierce, Amara explained. He mentioned Myla's interest in science. Myla's eyes widened as she opened the package, revealing a beautiful children's book about weather patterns and a small crystal prism. Look, Mommy, it makes rainbows. Soraya's chest tightened. It was a thoughtful gift, educational yet magical, perfect for Myla's age and interests. How had he known? The drive to Harvey's was quick, but Soraya's anxiety mounted with each passing minute. What was she doing? Having dinner with a billionaire at a family restaurant where the vinyl booths had seen better days and the menu hadn't changed in 20 years. But when they pulled up, Daxton was already waiting outside, dressed not in his usual suit, but in dark jeans and a blue sweater that somehow made him look both more approachable and more handsome. He opened the car door himself, offering his hand to help her out. You look beautiful, he said softly, then turned his attention to Myla. And you must be the young scientist I've heard about. I'm Daxton. Myla beamed, holding up the prism. Thank you for my present. Did you know it can make rainbows even when it's not raining? Really? You'll have to show me how that works, he replied with genuine enthusiasm. I hear you're doing a weather project for school. As they entered the restaurant, Soraya watched in amazement as Daxton listened intently to Myla's detailed explanation of her project, asking questions that showed he'd done his homework about elementary school science standards. Pierce, party of 3. The hostess led them to a corner booth, slightly removed from the dinner rush crowd. Soraya noticed it offered a clear view of both exits, a detail that couldn't be coincidental. "I hope you don't mind," Daxton said as they settled in. "I called ahead to request a quieter spot, and," he smiled at Myla, "I heard they have the best chocolate milkshakes in Seattle. With extra whipped cream?" Myla asked hopefully. "With everything you want," he promised, then caught Soraya's eye. "If it's okay with your mom, of course." The evening unfolded with surprising ease. Myla's presence acted as a buffer, her natural curiosity and charm breaking through the awkwardness. She told stories about school, her friends, and her dreams of becoming a weather scientist who also drives race cars. An atmospheric physicist with a need for speed, Daxton grinned. "I like it." As they shared plates of comfort food, burgers, fries, and yes, chocolate milkshakes, Soraya found herself relaxing despite her best intentions. Daxton had a way of making both her and Myla feel at ease, never highlighting the obvious disparities between their worlds. "May I be excused?" Myla asked after finishing her meal. "So I see they have one of those claw machines with stuffed animals." Soraya hesitated, but the machine was within clear view of their table. "Okay, baby, but stay where I can see you." As Myla skipped away, a comfortable silence settled between them, broken only by the distant sounds of the restaurant and Myla's delighted giggles at the claw machine. "She's remarkable," Daxton said quietly. "You've done an amazing job with her." "She's everything to me." Soraya traced the condensation on her water glass. "Which is why I need to understand what this is, Daxton. Why are you here? Why now?" He was quiet for a moment, considering his words carefully. That night at the Crystal Room, I'd seen countless people treat service staff poorly, but something about that moment, about the cruelty of it, made me stop. And then I saw how you handled it, with such dignity, such strength. You thanked me, but you never begged or tried to capitalize on the moment. You just picked yourself up and kept going. I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice. You could have played the victim, could have tried to sue the restaurant, could have made a scene. Instead, you showed grace under pressure. It stayed with me. "And now," Soraya pressed. "Days, what do you want now?" "Honestly, I want to know you, both of you. No agenda, no expectations, just a chance." Before Soraya could respond, Myla returned, triumphantly clutching a small stuffed penguin. "Look what I got, Mr. Daxton. Do you want to see how the prism makes rainbows?" The moment passed, but Soraya felt its weight lingering between them. As the evening wound down, Myla began to show signs of tiredness, her excited chatter giving way to sleepy smiles. Daxton insisted on paying, waving off Soraya's protests with a gentle, "Please, let me have this." Outside, the mist had turned to a proper rain. Daxton pulled out an umbrella, walking them to where Amara waited with the car. As Myla climbed in, already half asleep, he turned to Soraya. "Thank you for tonight," he said softly. "So for giving me a chance." "Daxton," she started, but he held up a hand. "I know you have concerns, questions, doubts. You wouldn't be the amazing mother you are if you didn't. But I meant what I said. No agenda, no expectations, just a chance to show you that sometimes good things can happen when you least expect them." A crack of thunder punctuated his words, making them both smile at the timing. "Myla has her science presentation on Tuesday," Soraya found herself saying. 9 a.m. at Riverside Elementary." His eyes lit up with understanding. "An invitation, tentative but real. I hear the weather forecast is perfect for rainbow making." As the car pulled away, Soraya watched his figure grow smaller in the rain. Myla stirred beside her, clutching her new penguin. "Mommy, is Mr. Daxton going to be our friend now?" Soraya smoothed her daughter's hair, thinking about chances and choices, about grace under pressure and rainbows in the rain. "Would you like that, baby?" "Uh-huh. He listens like he really cares about the answers, like you do." Out of the mouths of babes, Soraya thought, pulling her daughter closer. The city lights blurred past their window, and somewhere in the distance, another roll of thunder echoed through the night. But for the first time in years, the sound didn't feel like a warning. It felt like possibility. Back in their apartment, as Soraya tucked Myla into bed, her phone buzzed with a message from Daxton. "Thank you for one of the best evenings I've had in years. Your daughter is extraordinary, just like her mother. Sleep well, both of you." Attached was a photo taken at some point during dinner, captured without her noticing, Soraya and Myla, heads bent together, sharing a laugh over their milkshakes. The joy in their faces was undeniable, unguarded, real. Saria sat on the edge of her bed, looking at the photo for a long time. Then, slowly, deliberately, she saved it to her phone. One picture, one evening, one chance. Maybe, just maybe, that was enough to start with. Tuesday morning dawned bright and clear, a rare gift in Seattle's typically grey landscape. Saria helped Mila set up her science project in Miss Kennedy's classroom, arranging the display board covered with weather charts, rainbow pictures, and carefully written explanations in a child's determined handwriting. "Do you think Mr. Daxton will really come?" Mila asked for the third time that morning, adjusting her purple bow nervously. "Baby, remember what we talked about? Mr. Daxton runs a big company. Even if he wants to come..." The classroom door opened, cutting off her words. Daxton stood there, as promised, looking somewhat out of place among the colorful alphabet charts and student artwork. He'd dressed down again, khakis and a light blue button-down, but couldn't quite hide the aura of authority that surrounded him. "I hope I'm not late," he said, holding up a paper bag. "I brought reinforcements." Inside were 3 breakfast sandwiches from the Artisan Cafe near Pike Place Market. Saria's guilty pleasure that she'd mentioned in passing during dinner, the thoughtfulness of it, remembering such a small detail, made her chest tight. "Mr. Daxton!" Mila rushed forward. "Come see my project. I used the prism you gave me." Other parents began filtering in, some casting curious glances their way. Saria noticed Ms. Kennedy's eyes widening slightly as she recognized Daxton. His face had been on enough local business magazines to be familiar. "Parents, students, please take your seats," Miss Kennedy called out. "We'll begin presentations in 5 minutes." Daxton leaned close to Saria, his voice low. "Thank you for letting me be here." Before she could respond, a familiar figure appeared in the doorway, sending ice through her veins. Xavier. Her daughter's father stood there in his signature leather jacket, looking exactly as he had the day he'd walked out on them 5 years ago. His eyes scanned the room, landing first on Mila, then on Saria, and finally on Daxton, standing close to her. "Daddy?" Mila's voice was small, confused. The room seemed to freeze. Other parents sensed the tension, conversations dying away. Mrs. Kennedy stepped forward, clearly uncertain how to handle the situation. "I heard about the presentation," Xavier said, his charm sliding into place like a well-worn mask. "Thought I'd surprise my baby girl." Saria felt Daxton tense beside her, but his voice remained calm. "Mila, why don't you show me where you want to set up your prism?" The subtle move gave Saria space to approach Xavier. Outside, now. In the hallway, fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows, Saria faced the man who'd shattered her world. "What are you doing here? Can't a father see his daughter?" "A father?" Saria's laugh was bitter. "Where were you last month on her birthday, or at Christmas, or any of the 1,000 days she needed you?" "I've changed, Saria, got my life together, and now I see you've moved up in the world." His eyes flicked toward the classroom. "Daxton Pierce, really? You don't get to judge my life. You lost that right when you walked out. I have rights. You have nothing." Her voice was steel. "No rights, no claims. You signed them away, remember, right after you cleaned out our bank account." Inside the classroom, they could hear Ms. Kennedy beginning the presentations. Mila would be third. "She's my daughter too," Xavier insisted. "No, she's the daughter you abandoned. The little girl who cried herself to sleep, asking why Daddy didn't love her enough to stay. The child I had to rebuild from the ground up after you broke her heart." Something flickered in Xavier's eyes. Guilt, perhaps, or just calculation. "I can take this to court." "Try it," a new voice said. Daxton stood in the doorway, his presence somehow filling the space. "I'm sure the judge would be very interested in the documented abandonment, the unpaid child support, and the signed termination of parental rights." Xavier's face darkened. "This isn't your business, rich boy. You made it my business when you decided to disrupt your daughter's special day." Daxton's voice was quiet but carried an unmistakable edge. "Now, you have 2 choices. Leave quietly, or I'll have security escort you out. Either way, if you come near Saria or Mila again without proper legal channels, you'll learn exactly how much influence I have in this city." For a moment, Xavier looked like he might argue. Then, with a scoff, he turned away. "This isn't over." "Yes," Saria called after him. "It is." As his footsteps faded, her composure cracked. Daxton caught her elbow, steadying her. "Mila's about to present." he said softly. She needs her mother's strength right now. Soraya took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. How is she? Focused on her project. I don't think she fully registered what happened. He paused. I hope I didn't overstep. You didn't. She met his eyes. Thank you. They slipped back into the classroom just as Miss Wood Kennedy called Myla's name. Standing straight and tall, her purple bow slightly crooked, Myla launched into her presentation about weather patterns and rainbow formation. And the super cool thing, she was saying, holding up her prism, is that we don't have to wait for rain to see beauty in the world. Sometimes we just need to look at things differently. Soraya felt tears threatening. Beside her, Daxton's hand found hers, squeezing gently. She should pull away. It was too soon, too complicated. But his touch anchored her, and right now she needed an anchor. Myla's presentation was a success. She handled the questions from her classmates with confidence, demonstrating her prism's rainbow-making abilities to delighted oohs and ahs. As the other students presented, Soraya noticed Daxton taking notes, asking thoughtful questions of each child. He treated every project with the same attention he'd give a board meeting, making even the shyest students stand a little taller. When the presentations ended, Ms. Kennedy approached their group. Myla did wonderfully today, and Mr. Pierce, thank you for your engagement with all the students. They're brilliant, he said sincerely. Myla's not the only future scientist in this room. Outside the classroom, Myla bounced between them, clutching her outstanding presentation certificate. Can we get ice cream to celebrate? Don't you have a meeting? Soraya asked Daxton. Remembering his typically packed schedule, he pulled out his phone, tapped a few times. Not anymore. Daxton, you can't keep what? Choosing to spend time with people who matter. His grey eyes held hers. The company won't collapse if I take a long lunch. Looking at Myla's hopeful face, Soraya felt her resolve weakening. 1 scoop. 2, Myla negotiated, making Daxton laugh. As they walked to the car, Myla skipping ahead with Amara, who had materialized somehow, as if sensing she'd be needed, Daxton spoke quietly. We should talk about Xavier. There's nothing to talk about. He does this, shows up, makes promises, disappears again. Let me help. My legal team No. Soraya stopped walking. I appreciate today more than I can say, but I can't start depending on you to fight my battles. Why not? His question was gentle but direct. Why is it wrong to let someone help? To not have to be strong all the time? Because people leave, she wanted to say. Because kindness comes with strings. Because every time I let someone in, they take a piece of me when they go. Instead, she watched Myla demonstrating her prism to Amara, rainbow patterns dancing on the school walls. She's happy right now, really happy. I can't risk what? Risk her having someone else in her corner. Risk letting yourself trust again. He stepped closer. Risk feeling something that scares you. Before she could answer, Myla called out, Mommy! Mr. Daxton! Look at the rainbow! They turned. Through her prism, Myla had caught a beam of sunlight, sending colors arcing across the brick wall. For a moment, they all stood there, watching light split into possibilities. Sometimes, Daxton murmured, echoing Myla's presentation, we just need to look at things differently. Soraya felt something shift inside her, subtle but seismic, like the moment before rain falls, when pressure changes and the world holds its breath. Ice cream, she said finally. But then we talk, really talk. His smile was warm, understanding. I'd like that. As they walked to the car, Myla's chatter filling the air, Soraya thought about prisms and perspective, about light bending into unexpected beauty, about how sometimes the storms we fear most bring the changes we need most. And maybe, just maybe, that wasn't such a terrifying thing after all. The ice cream parlor buzzed with afternoon energy, but their corner booth felt like an island of calm. Myla sat between Amara and the window, happily demolishing a sundae while pointing out different cloud formations in the sky, a newfound interest sparked by her weather project. Daxton watched as Soraya methodically stirred her coffee, buying time before the conversation they both knew was coming. The events of the morning had left invisible bruises, the kind that ached beneath the surface. Would you like me to take Myla to see the kitchen? Amara offered, reading the room with practiced ease. My cousin owns this place, and I hear they're making fresh waffle cones. Myla's eyes lit up. Can I, Mommy, please? After Soraya's nod, they disappeared behind the counter, Myla's excited questions fading into the background noise. Silence settled between the remaining two, heavy with unspoken words. "I looked him up," Daxton said finally. "Xavier Monroe, multiple arrests for petty theft, 2 failed businesses, currently working as a parking attendant in Portland." "Stop!" Soraya's voice was tight. "I don't need his life story. You need to know what you're dealing with." "I know exactly what I'm dealing with. I've been dealing with it for 5 years." She met his eyes. "The question is, do you know what you're dealing with? Tell me." She took a deep breath. "I met Xavier when I was 23. Young, ambitious, full of dreams about finishing college and becoming a journalist. He was charming, passionate about music, promised me the world. When I got pregnant—" She paused, collecting herself. "He seemed excited at first, started talking about marriage, a future together. Then the reality set in. He ran. Worse, he stayed just long enough to destroy everything. Cleaned out our savings, maxed out our credit cards, left me with nothing but debt and a baby on the way." Her laugh was hollow. "You know what the last thing he said to me was? 'You're too good for me anyway.'" Daxton's hand tightened around his cup. "And today was the first time he's tried to come back. No, he shows up every couple of years when he needs something. Money, a place to stay, validation. But this time was different. This time he saw you, and that changes things. Everything changes when money enters the equation." She looked out the window, watching Seattle life flow past. "He'll try to use you against me, paint me as someone taking advantage of a wealthy man. He'll threaten custody battles, demand child support reviews. Let him try." Daxton's voice was steel wrapped in silk. "I have an army of lawyers who would love to tear him apart. That's exactly what I'm afraid of." Soraya turned back to him, eyes blazing. "Don't you see? The minute I accept your help, I prove him right. I become what everyone expects. Just another woman looking for a rich man to solve her problems. Is that what you think I see when I look at you? What do you see, Daxton, really? Because from where I'm sitting, this whole situation is a fantasy. The billionaire and the taxi driver. It's a tabloid headline waiting to happen." He was quiet for a moment, considering his words carefully. 7 years ago, I saw a woman who faced humiliation with dignity. Today, I see a mother who would move heaven and earth for her child. I see someone who works 3 jobs without complaint, who teaches her daughter about rainbows and possibilities, who's so afraid of being hurt again that she'd rather push happiness away than risk it being taken. Pretty words from a man who's never had to worry about making rent. "You think money makes life simple?" His voice carried an edge now. "You think I don't understand fear? Loss? My parents died when I was 12. Soraya, car accident. I inherited a company I didn't want, became a parent to my younger sister when I was barely more than a child myself. Every decision I made affected thousands of lives. One wrong move could cost people their jobs, their futures." Soraya absorbed this, seeing him in a new light. "I didn't know, because you didn't ask. You made assumptions about my life, just like you assume I'm making assumptions about yours." From the kitchen, they heard Myla's delighted laugh, followed by the smell of fresh-baked waffle cones. The sound seemed to break the tension, reminding them both of what really mattered. "I'm scared," Soraya admitted softly. "Not of you, but of what you represent. Hope is dangerous when you have someone else's heart to protect." Daxton reached across the table, his hand palm up, an invitation, not a demand. "Then let me earn your trust, not with money or lawyers or influence, just me, just us, figuring this out one day at a time. Slowly, deliberately." She placed her hand in his. "And when the world notices, when the press starts digging, when they find out about Xavier, then we face it together. On your terms, at your pace." His thumb traced circles on her palm, sending shivers up her arm. "I'm not asking for forever, Soraya. I'm just asking for a chance to show you that not every storm destroys. Sometimes they clear the air, make room for something new to grow." More weather metaphors. A smile tugged at her lips. "You've been paying attention to Myla's project. I pay attention to everything about you both." His eyes held hers, sincere and unwavering. "Down to the way you always check exits in any room. How you cut Myla's sandwiches into triangles because she thinks they taste better that way. The little dance you do when you think no one's watching and your favorite song comes on at the diner." Warmth bloomed in her chest, equal parts touched and terrified by his observations. Most people would find that level of attention creepy. Most people haven't spent 7 years wondering about the woman who changed their perspective on kindness and courage. Before she could respond, Myla bounded back to their table, face smudged with chocolate and eyes shining. "Mommy, they let me help make the cones. And Ms. Amara says, I have natural talent. Future ice cream artisan." Daxton grinned, releasing Soraya's hand to help Myla back into her seat. "A scientist who races cars and makes ice cream. I like your style. And catches bad guys," Myla added enthusiastically. "Like a superhero." Something dark flickered across Soraya's face. Thoughts of Xavier, no doubt. Daxton caught it, his expression softening with understanding. "Speaking of superheroes," he said, "I hear there's a new science museum exhibit about weather patterns and their impact on cities. Would you ladies be interested in checking it out this weekend? They have a whole section on storm chasers." Myla's gasp of excitement was answer enough, but Daxton kept his eyes on Soraya, waiting. This was more than a casual invitation. It was a statement of intent, a step toward whatever they were becoming. Soraya looked at her daughter's hopeful face, at Daxton's patient eyes, at their still empty ice cream bowls that somehow felt like a metaphor for possibilities waiting to be filled. "Saturday," she said finally, "but we take my taxi." His smile was brilliant. I wouldn't have it any other way. Later, after Amara had driven them home and Myla was busy showing Mrs. Rodriguez her presentation certificate, Soraya stood at her apartment window. The afternoon sun had given way to clouds again, Seattle returning to its natural state. Her phone buzzed with a message from Daxton. "Thank you for today, for trusting me with your story, your fears, your hopes, for letting me be part of your world, even just a little. Rest well, both of you." Attached was another photo, this time of Myla in the ice cream kitchen, wearing an oversized apron and beaming with pride as she held up a perfectly swirled cone. Soraya saved it alongside the first one, starting a collection of moments that scared and thrilled her in equal measure. Outside, the clouds shifted, and a single beam of sunlight broke through, nature's own prism, painting possibilities across her wall. The Science Museum buzzed with weekend energy, but Daxton had arranged for them to enter before the general opening hours. Myla pressed her face against a glass display showing lightning formation, her breath fogging the surface as Soraya read the educational placard aloud. "Did you know lightning can be up to 5 times hotter than the surface of the sun?" Daxton added, making Myla's eyes widen with wonder. "Really? That's like infinity degrees!" Their laughter echoed through the quiet hall, drawing a smile from the museum guide who'd been assigned to their private tour. For 2 hours, they explored exhibits about tornadoes, hurricanes, and atmospheric phenomena, with Myla taking detailed notes in her purple notebook for future science projects. She explained seriously. It felt normal, almost too normal, like they were just another family enjoying a Saturday morning, until they weren't. The first camera flash caught them at the interactive weather station, where Daxton was helping Myla create her own forecast. Soraya saw the photographer through the glass walls. Professional equipment, not a tourist's phone. Daxton noticed her tension immediately. With subtle efficiency, he typed something into his phone. Within minutes, museum security had escorted the photographer out. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I thought we'd have more time before this started." Before Soraya could respond, her own phone buzzed. A link from Laurel, Tech Billionaire's secret romance. The photo was grainy but clear enough. Daxton, Soraya, and Myla at the ice cream parlor days earlier, his hand holding hers across the table. "Mommy?" Myla's voice pulled her back. "Can we see the tornado simulator next?" Soraya forced a smile. "Of course, baby." But her hands shook slightly as she put her phone away. "We can leave," Daxton offered, reading her distress. "No," she squared her shoulders. "We're not running. Myla's having fun, and I won't let this ruin her day." They continued through the exhibits, but Soraya felt exposed now, hyper-aware of every glance. Every phone pointed their way. Daxton stayed close, his presence both comforting and complicated. At the simulator, Myla's delighted squeals as she watched artificial winds swirl drew other children to the display. Soraya watched as her daughter naturally took charge, explaining the science behind tornadoes, just as she'd learned moments ago. "She's a natural teacher," Daxton observed. "She gets that from her grandmother," Soraya said softly. "Mom was a high school science teacher before." She trailed off, the memory still raw. "Before cancer, 3 years ago." Soraya watched Myla demonstrate wind patterns with her hands. She fought so hard to stay, to see Myla grow up. "Some days I see so much of her in my little girl." Daxton's hand found hers, squeezing gently. This time, she didn't pull away, even knowing cameras might be watching. As the museum began filling with regular visitors, they made their way to the exit. In the gift shop, Daxton tried to buy Myla everything she showed interest in, but Soraya's firm look stopped him. "One item," she told her daughter. "Choose carefully." Myla selected a build-your-own weather station kit, beaming when Daxton approved of her practical choice. Outside, more photographers waited. Daxton's security team, discreet but present, created a buffer as they walked to Soraya's taxi. She'd insisted on driving today, maintaining some control over their narrative. "I should have warned you better," Daxton said as they settled inside. "Prepared you for this level of attention? Would it have made a difference?" Soraya glanced at Myla in the rearview mirror, already engrossed in reading her kit's instructions. "We could be more careful. More private venues, less public outings." "And what message would that send? That we're ashamed? Hiding? Never ashamed," he said firmly. "But I want to protect you both." Soraya navigated through downtown traffic, considering her words carefully. My whole life, I've dealt with people's judgments. Single mum, working multiple jobs. Now they'll judge me for different reasons. But at least," she paused, surprising herself with her next words, "at least this time, it's for something that makes me happy." The confession hung between them, simple but profound. "You make me happy too," he said quietly. "Both of you." From the back seat, Myla piped up, "Can we have lunch at Grandma's favorite place?" The question caught Soraya off guard. They hadn't been to the small Vietnamese restaurant since her mother's passing. It was too full of memories, too heavy with absence. "I don't know, baby." "Please." She always said happy news should be shared with noodles. Daxton's brow furrowed. "Happy news." Myla's face took on the particular expression of a child who said too much. Myla." Soraya's voice carried a warning note. "What did you do?" "I might have, told my class that Mr. Daxton is my new daddy." The taxi swerved slightly before Soraya regained control. Silence filled the car, broken only by the soft patter of rain starting to fall. "It just came out," Myla rushed to explain. "Penny was bragging about having 2 dads after her mom got remarried, and I said I had a mom and a Daxton, which is better because he knows about science and rainbows, and he makes you smile like in the movies." "Myla," Soraya's voice cracked slightly. "We talked about this, about not getting too—" "I know you're scared," Myla said with startling insight, "because of old Daddy. But Mr. Daxton isn't like that. He proves it every day, just like you taught me. Actions show love, not just words." Soraya caught Daxton's expression in the mirror, a mix of emotion so raw it made her chest ache. "The noodle place sounds perfect," he said finally, his voice rough. If that's okay with your mom." They ended up at Pho Lin, the tiny restaurant where Soraya's mother had celebrated every milestone in their lives. The elderly owner, Mrs. Lin, recognized them immediately. "Little Myla, so big now." Her eyes took in Daxton, then Soraya, a knowing smile crossing her face. "Your mother, she watches. She sends good man this time." They settled into the familiar corner booth, where years of family photos lined the wall. Soraya's mother smiled down at them from a dozen frozen moments. Graduations, birthdays, quiet Sunday lunches. "Tell me about her," Daxton asked, as Mrs. Lin brought their usual order without being asked. So Soraya did. Over steaming bowls of poe, she shared stories of the woman who'd supported her through pregnancy, who'd watched Myla so she could work extra shifts, who'd taught them both that love was an action, renewed daily through choices and sacrifices. "She would have liked you," Myla declared with certainty. "She always said we needed more rainbows in our life." Daxton reached across the table, taking Soraya's hand in front of the whole world. "I promise you both I'm not going anywhere. Whatever storms come, we face them together." Outside, the rain continued to fall, but inside, Pho Lin, surrounded by memories and possibility, Soraya felt something shift, like the quiet eye of a storm. This moment of peace felt both temporary and profound. Later, as they dropped Daxton at his building, Myla already half asleep in the back seat, he leaned in close. "Thank you for sharing your mother with me today, for trusting me with her memory." Soraya looked at him, really looked at him, and saw not the billionaire from the news, but the man who learned her coffee order, who respected her boundaries, who looked at her daughter with genuine love. "Stay for dinner tomorrow?" she found herself asking. "I'm making Mom's famous lasagna." His smile was answer enough. As they drove home, Soraya glanced at her sleeping daughter. Then at the business headlines already forming on her phone's news alerts. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new judgments, new storms to weather. But for now, in this quiet moment between what was and what could be, she let herself believe in rainbows after rain. Monday morning brought chaos. Soraya's phone wouldn't stop buzzing with notifications as local news outlets picked up their story. The headlines ranged from cautiously curious to openly sensational. Pierce Industries CEO's new family, from taxi to penthouse, a modern Cinderella story. Exclusive, the woman who captured Seattle's most eligible bachelor. Outside her apartment building, 3 photographers waited. Mrs. Rodriguez had called in a panic. They'd tried to interview her about the little girl who might be America's next tech heiress. "This is my fault." Daxton's voice was tight with tension on the phone. "I should have been more prepared, had better security in place." "It's not your fault," Soraya said, watching Myla get ready for school through the bedroom doorway. "Unless you secretly called the press." "Never." His vehemence made her smile despite everything. "Oh, but I can have a car there in 5 minutes. Private driver, security detail, no." Soraya's voice was firm. "We're not changing our whole lives. I'm taking Myla to school like I always do. At least, let me—" "Daxton," she softened her tone. "I appreciate you wanting to protect us, but we can't hide. That only gives them more power." After hanging up, Soraya helped Myla put on her backpack. "Baby, remember what we talked about? About people being extra interested in us right now." "Because of the pictures?" Myla asked. "Katie showed me on her mum's phone. I looked pretty in my science museum outfit." Soraya's heart clenched. "Yes, because of the pictures. There might be more people with cameras today. Just stay close to me, okay?" They made it through the photographer gauntlet with heads held high, Soraya's arm protective around Myla's shoulders. But at school, new challenges waited. "Mrs. Wells," Ms. Kennedy caught her after drop-off. "We've had several media inquiries, and some parents have concerns." "Concerns?" Soraya's voice was ice. "About disruption. Photographers. They're worried about their children's privacy." The teacher looked uncomfortable. "And there have been some comments about social dynamics. Children can be cruel when they sense difference." "You mean because I'm a taxi driver dating a billionaire? I would never—" "We support all family structures, of course." "Of course." Soraya's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Please tell these concerned parents that my daughter's security is my priority, and if anyone makes her feel unwelcome, they'll learn exactly how fierce a mother's love can be." At the diner, things weren't much better. Customers either stared openly or pretended not to stare while failing miserably. Laurel ran interference as best she could, but by lunch rush, Soraya's nerves were frayed. "Table 6 wants to know if you're pregnant with the heir to Pierce Industries," Laurel reported with an eye roll. "And Table 4 is convinced you're a secret corporate spy." "Fantastic." Soraya adjusted her name tag, which suddenly felt like a target. "Any other theories?" "Oh, honey, you don't want to know what Karen in the corner thinks, but she's on her 4th mimosa, so—" A commotion at the entrance drew their attention. A woman in designer clothes was arguing with the host, her voice carrying clearly. "I simply want to speak with her, mother to mother." Soraya's blood ran cold. She recognized Vivian Pierce from magazine covers, Daxton's aunt and former guardian, known for her sharp business acumen and sharper tongue. Before anyone could intervene, Vivian spotted her. "Ah, Ms. Wells, might we speak privately?" Laurel stepped forward, but Soraya touched her arm. "It's okay. I've got this." They settled in a corner booth, as far from curious ears as possible. Vivian Pierce studied her with calculating eyes. "You seem intelligent," she began without preamble. "So I'll be direct. What's your price?" Soraya blinked. "Excuse me. To end this dalliance with my nephew, before it becomes messier than it already is." Vivian opened her designer bag, withdrew a checkbook. "Name your figure. Consider it compensation for any emotional distress." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "Get out. Ms. Wells. Get out." Soraya's voice trembled with fury. "If you think you can put a price tag on what Daxton, Foyne, Myla and I have, what you have is a fantasy," Vivian cut in. "One that will destroy everything Daxton has built. The board is already nervous. Stocks dropped 2 points this morning. And your daughter? Do you really want her dragged through this circus?" The mention of Myla made Soraya's hands clench. "My daughter is none of your concern. Everything about this situation is my concern. I raised Daxton, helped him build Pierce Industries into what it is today. I won't watch him throw it all away on some modern-day Cinderella story. If you raised him, Soraya said quietly, then you should trust his judgment. His judgment is clouded by guilt and attraction. 7 years ago, he helped a struggling waitress. Now he's trying to turn that moment into some grand romance. But we both know it won't last. The novelty will fade. The differences in your worlds will become impossible to ignore. And who gets hurt in the end? A little girl who's already lost one father figure. Each word landed like a physical blow. Vivian saw it, pressed her advantage. I can make this easy. The check will be generous, enough to put your daughter through college. Give her opportunities you've only dreamed of. Isn't that worth more than a few months of playing house with my nephew? Soraya stood so abruptly the table rattled. You don't know me. You don't know my daughter. And you clearly don't know Daxton if you think he could be bought or sold like a company asset. Everyone has a price, Mrs. Wells. I'm offering you the chance to set yours before the market does it for you. Get out of my diner. If you ever come near me or my daughter again, I'll show you exactly how much damage a taxi driver can do to a carefully curated public image. Vivian's smile was cold. Threats. How predictable. Think about my offer, Miss Wells. Think about what's best for your daughter. After she left, Soraya fled to the back alley, gulping in air that smelled like garbage and rain. Her phone buzzed. Daxton, probably checking in. She couldn't answer, couldn't hear his voice right now, because the worst part, the part that made her want to scream or cry or both, was that Vivian had voiced every fear that kept her awake at night, every doubt, every what if. The back door opened. Laurel appeared with a cup of coffee and understanding eyes. Want me to slash her tires? Because I totally saw which Bentley was hers. The absurd offer startled a laugh from Soraya. I'm pretty sure that's a felony. Worth it. Laurel handed her the coffee. You know she's wrong, right? About all of it? Is she? Soraya leaned against the wet brick wall. You've seen the headlines, the photographers, the whispers. It's only going to get worse. So what? You've survived worse. And this time you're not alone. That's what scares me. Soraya's voice cracked. Myla adores him. I'm falling for him. If it all falls apart, then you'll survive that too. Laurel squeezed her hand. But don't let some bitter socialite make you throw away something real because you're scared it might end. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Ms. Kennedy. Myla was upset because some kids had made comments about the news photos. She was asking for her mum. Reality crashed back in. Her daughter needed her. Everything else, Vivian's threats, the media circus, her own fears, had to wait. I need to go, she told Laurel. Can you cover my shift? Go, and Soraya, Laurel's face was serious. Whatever you decide it for you and Myla. Not for Daxton, not for his aunt, not for the tabloids, for you. The rain started again as Soraya drove to school, Seattle's constant companion providing a rhythm for her chaotic thoughts. Vivian's words echoed in her mind, mixing with headlines and whispers and her own deepest fears. Her phone lit up with another text from Daxton. I just heard about my aunt. I'm so sorry. Please let me make this right. Soraya stared at the message until a car horn jolted her back to reality. The light had turned green, but she felt frozen, caught between moving forward and retreat. Above the city, storm clouds gathered, dark and heavy with promise, or perhaps warning. These days, it was getting harder to tell the difference. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of chaos. After picking up Myla from school, Soraya had driven them to their small apartment, only to find Xavier waiting outside. He held a tabloid in his hand, his smile predatory. Quite a step up from a parking attendant, isn't it? He waved the magazine with its grainy photos. I'm my girl and my daughter living the high life. They're not yours, Soraya said, keeping Myla behind her. Leave before I call the police. The police? Xavier laughed. Honey, I'm about to be your ticket to an even bigger payday. See, I've got reporters very interested in the real story, about how you kept my daughter from me, how you're using her to trap another man. Is that what happened? Daxton's voice cut through the tension. He stepped out of a black SUV that had pulled up silently. Because I have 7 years of unpaid child support records that tell a different story. Xavier's swagger faltered slightly. This is a private family matter. You made it public the moment you talked to reporters. Daxton's voice was calm, but his eyes were steel. Now, here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave. You're going to retract any statements you've made to the press. And you're going to stay away from Soraya and Myla. Or what, rich boy? Or I release documentation of every penny you stole, every promise you broke, Every legal right you signed away. I make sure every employer in the Pacific Northwest knows exactly who you are. And I personally ensure that your life becomes very, very uncomfortable. You can't. I can. I will. Try me." Something in Daxton's tone must have registered, because Xavier backed away. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is." Soraya found her voice. "It's been over for 5 years. Go live your life, Xavier. We're living ours." After he skulked away, the adrenaline crashed. Soraya's knees felt weak. Myla clung to her waist, face buried against her side. "How did you know?" she asked Daxton. "Mrs. Rodriguez called Amara. I came as soon as I could." He knelt to Myla's level. "Hey there, brave girl. How about we get some dinner? I know a place where they make mac and cheese that tastes like clouds." Myla peeked out. "Clouds don't have taste." "Then how do you know the mac and cheese doesn't taste like them?" The tiny giggle that escaped her daughter was worth more than all of Xavier's threats. But as they drove to the restaurant, Daxton insisting they take his car this time, Soraya couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted. The restaurant was small, intimate and notably paparazzi-free. As they settled into a corner booth, Daxton explained, "The owner is an old friend. No press allowed, ever." Myla colored happily in her kids and menu, while Soraya pushed her food around her plate. The events of the past 2 days swirled in her mind. Vivian's offer, Xavier's threats, the constant scrutiny that seemed to be closing in from all sides. "Talk to me," Daxton said softly. "Say please, I'm scared." The admission cost her, but she forced herself to continue. "Not of Xavier, or your aunt, or even the press. I'm scared of how easily you solved everything. One phone call, one threat, one display of power. Is that wrong? Using what I have to protect the people I love." The word hung between them. Love, so casually spoken, so heavily weighted. And what happens when that power turns? When the novelty wears off? When... "Stop!" His hand found hers across the table. "Look at me, Soraya. Really look." She did. Past the designer clothes and powerful aura, she saw the boy who'd lost his parents too young, the man who carried responsibility like a second skin, the person who looked at her daughter with genuine love. "I'm not playing hero," he said. "I'm not trying to save you or fix everything. I want to be part of your lives. Both of you. The good parts, the hard parts, all of it. Even if it costs you everything. Your aunt said the board is nervous. The stocks will recover. The board will adapt. And my aunt," he sighed, "I should have warned you about her. She's been trying to control my life since my parents died. She thinks she's protecting me, but she's really just afraid of losing control. She's not entirely wrong. Our worlds are so different." "Are they?" He gestured to Myla, who was carefully splitting her mac and cheese into perfect portions. "Because I see a mother who wants the best for her child. I see a woman who works hard, loves deeply, and faces every challenge with grace. I see a family that could be mine too, if you'll let me in." Before Soraya could respond, her phone buzzed with an incoming email, then another, and another. Breaking news alerts flooded her screen. Someone had leaked old court documents, Xavier's criminal record, the custody agreements, even bank statements showing the money he'd stolen. "Daxton," her voice held a warning. "It wasn't me." He was already on his own phone, expression darkening. This is something else." More alerts. Social media exploding with hashtags. Team Soraya. Real love. Leave them alone. The narrative was shifting, but it felt like drowning in a different direction. "Hi, Mommy." Myla's voice was small. "Are the bad pictures back?" Soraya pulled her daughter close, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. "No, baby. These aren't bad pictures. These are just grown-up complications. Like when my science project got wet in the rain, and we had to make it stronger. Something like that. Then we'll make this stronger too." Myla's simple faith hit like a punch to the heart. "You always say rain helps things grow." Daxton's phone rang, his board calling an emergency meeting. Soraya's lit up with interview requests. The world was pressing in again, demanding answers, explanations, stories. "I have to go," he said, regret heavy in his voice. "But this changes nothing. Not for me." "It changes everything," Soraya whispered. "Only if we let it." He knelt by their booth, eye level with them both. "I meant what I said. I love you. Both of you. Whatever storms come, we face them together. Like weather scientists," Myla declared. "Exactly like weather scientists." He smiled, but his eyes stayed on Soraya. "We study the patterns. We prepare for the worst, but we don't run from the storm. After he left, Soraya and Mila sat in the quiet booth, sharing the last of the cloud-flavored mac and cheese. Outside, cameras had found them, flashes lighting up the growing darkness like artificial lightning. "Mommy," Mila asked, watching the chaos through the window. "Do you love Mr. Daxton?" The question stripped away all pretense, all adult complications, leaving only the raw truth that a child could see. "Yes," Soraya admitted, finally saying it aloud. "I do." "Then that's all that matters." Mila nodded decisively. Grandma always said love is like gravity. You can't see it, but it holds everything together." Soraya looked at her daughter, so wise, so resilient, so sure of the things adults spent lifetimes questioning. Then she looked at her phone, at the storm of media chaos threatening to sweep them away. She had a choice to make: run from the storm or learn to dance in the rain. Her fingers moved across the screen, typing out a message to Daxton. "When your meeting's done, come over. It's time we wrote our own story." His reply was immediate. "On my way as soon as I can. And Soraya, thank you for not giving up on us." Outside, the cameras continued to flash, but they seemed less threatening now. Just lightning without thunder, light without power to harm. Mila pressed her face against the window, fogging the glass with her breath. "Look, Mommy, the rain's starting to clear." And so it was. Beyond the camera flashes and city lights, patches of clear sky peeked through the clouds. Not a full rainbow, not yet, but a promise of one to come. The Pierce Industries boardroom hummed with tension. Daxton stood at the window, watching Seattle's skyline disappear into evening fog, while 12 pairs of eyes bored into his back. The emergency meeting had stretched for hours, each minute pulling him further from where he wanted to be. "This is unprecedented," board member Richardson was saying. "The media coverage alone has doubled our social media engagement and improved our public image." Daxton interrupted, turning to face them. "Our latest polls show increased trust in Pierce Industries. People see us as more human." "Human doesn't pay shareholders," Vivian cut in. She'd been unusually quiet throughout the meeting, which made her more dangerous. "The stock drop has already started to recover." Daxton pressed a button, bringing up the latest market projections. "In fact, we're trending toward a 3-point gain by week's end." "Because of the leaked documents," another board member noted. "Convenient timing." Daxton's jaw tightened. "I had nothing to do with that leak." "No." Vivian's smile was sharp. "Then perhaps your taxi driver friend—" "Her name is Soraya." Daxton's voice cut through the room like steel, and she would never exploit her own privacy that way. Unlike some people, Vivian's face remained carefully neutral, but her fingers twitched. A tell Daxton remembered from childhood chess matches. She'd always fidgeted when her schemes unraveled. "You leaked the documents," he said, realization dawning. "You thought it would scare her away, make her look like she was after money. But it backfired, didn't it? The public saw the truth instead. I did what was necessary to protect this company, to protect you." "No." Daxton planted his hands on the conference table, leaning forward. "You did what was necessary to maintain control, but here's what's going to happen now. The board will vote on my leadership, as is their right. But first, they should know that I've spent the last month developing a new division focused on sustainable urban transportation, electric vehicles, improved infrastructure, reduced emissions, and at the center of it all, a revolutionary ride-share program developed with input from actual drivers." The board stirred with interest. Daxton pressed his advantage. "Soraya's insights have been invaluable. She understands the challenges drivers face, the needs of different communities. This isn't just about my personal life, it's about the future of this company." Charts and projections filled the screens. Months of work he'd been saving for the right moment. The board members leaned forward, expressions shifting from skepticism to intrigue. "Project Rainbow," he concluded, "because sometimes the most beautiful things come after the storm." Silence fell. Richardson cleared his throat. "The projected returns are impressive. And the positive PR from an environmentally conscious initiative," another member added, "with a touching personal connection." A third chimed in, "The media will love it." Vivian stood abruptly. "This is emotional manipulation." "No," Daxton corrected, "this is good business. Something you taught me, remember. Find what people need, what makes their lives better, and build from there." He faced the board directly. "I love Soraya and her daughter. That's not going to change. But my commitment to this company, to its growth and evolution, hasn't changed either. So vote however you choose. Just know that Project Rainbow launches with or without Pierce Industries behind it. One by one, the board members voted. When the final tally showed overwhelming support for both Daxton's leadership and the new initiative, Vivian stormed out without a word. Daxton's phone buzzed. Soraya's message about writing their own story. His heart leaped, but he forced himself to finish properly, shaking hands, accepting congratulations. Finally, in his private elevator, he let out a long breath. Amara appeared beside him, tablet in hand. "The press release is ready," she said, "and I've cleared your schedule for the next 2 days." "Amara, go get your family," she smiled. "I've got everything else covered." The drive to Soraya's apartment felt endless. Rain had started again, because of course it had. Seattle's weather remained the most consistent character in their story. He found them in the small community garden behind the building. Myla was showing Mrs. Rodriguez how to use her prism to catch the last rays of sunlight breaking through the clouds. Soraya stood watching them, her face peaceful despite everything. She turned as he approached, and something in his chest tightened. She wore simple jeans and a sweater, her hair falling loose around her shoulders, and she was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi." He wanted to pull her close, but uncertainty held him back. "You said something about writing our own story." "I did." She gestured to a worn wooden bench. "Sit with me." They watched Myla create tiny rainbows across the garden wall, her delighted giggles mixing with the gentle patter of rain. "I've been thinking," Soraya began, "about what my mother would say about all this. She always told me that life's biggest moments come dressed as ordinary days, that love isn't about grand gestures or perfect timing. It's about choosing each other every day, especially when it's hard." She sounds wise. She was. Soraya turned to face him fully. "I've been so scared of losing what we have that I almost lost it anyway, pushing you away, letting other people's opinions matter more than what I know in my heart." "And what does your heart know?" "That I love you." The words came easily now, natural as breathing. "That Myla loves you. That whatever storms come, we're stronger together than apart." Daxton's hand found hers, fingers intertwining. "The board voted in favor of my leadership and approved a new project I've been working on, one inspired by you." He explained Project Rainbow, watching her eyes widen with understanding. "You used my suggestions about driver safety and community access. Every one of them, because you see things I miss, understand people in ways I'm still learning. You make me better, Soraya. You and Myla both." A splash of color caught their attention. Above the garden, a perfect rainbow arced across the clearing sky. "Mommy, Mr. Daxton, look!" Myla ran to them, prism clutched tight. "It's like my science project, but bigger. Nature's own prism," Daxton smiled, lifting her onto his lap. "Want to know a secret? I'm naming a whole company project after rainbows because of you." Myla's eyes grew huge. "Really? Can I help? I know lots about weather now." "Well, every good project needs a scientific advisor." Soraya watched them together, the man who held her heart and the little girl who was her heart. The past weeks played through her mind, first meetings and shared ice cream, science projects and quiet confessions, storms weathered and rainbows found. "Move in with me," Daxton said suddenly. "What? Not to my penthouse, I know that's too much too soon. But I bought a house. Nothing too extravagant, I promise. It has a garden for Myla's science experiments, a library for quiet moments, and the best view of the sunset in Seattle. It's close to her school, your work, everything you need to maintain your independence." "You bought a house. When?" "The day after the museum. I knew then I wanted to build a life with you both, but only if you want it too." Myla bounced excitedly. "So can I paint my room purple?" "Any color you want," he promised. "But it's up to your mum." Soraya looked at the rainbow overhead, at her daughter's hopeful face, at the man who'd walked into her taxi on a rainy night and changed everything. "Yes," she said simply. "Yes." His smile could have lit up all of Seattle. "Yes to the house. Yes to building a life together. Yes to whatever comes next." Myla cheered, her prism sending tiny rainbows dancing around them. In the distance, thunder rumbled, a reminder that storms would always come. But now they had something stronger than any storm, a love built on choice and trust, understanding and growth, a family created not by blood or obligation, but by hearts choosing each other every day. And really, Soraya thought as Daxton pulled them both close. That was the most powerful magic of all. 3 months later, Seattle's autumn painted the city in shades of gold and amber. Sarika stood in the kitchen of their new home. Not a mansion, as the press had speculated, but a warm, modern craftsman with large windows and a wraparound porch perfect for watching storms roll in across the Sound. The morning sun caught the crystal prism hanging in the window, sending rainbow patterns dancing across the granite countertops. Myla had insisted on hanging prisms in every room, turning their home into a kaleidoscope of color on sunny days. "Mom," Myla's voice echoed from upstairs, "have you seen my weather journal? I need it for the presentation." "Ah, yes, the presentation." Today marked the launch of Project Rainbow, and Myla had been selected as the initiative's first Junior Environmental Ambassador, a program she'd helped design during weekend brainstorming sessions with Daxton. "Check your science drawer, baby," Soraya called back, smiling at the sound of rushed footsteps and excited muttering. Strong arms slipped around her waist, and the familiar scent of sandalwood enveloped her. "Ready for today?" Daxton asked, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Are you?" She turned in his embrace. "It's a big risk, putting so much of ourselves into this launch. The biggest risk is never taking one at all." He smiled, repeating words she'd said to him weeks ago when they'd decided to go public with their story, their real story, as part of the project launch. The media circus had eventually died down, replaced by genuine interest in their unconventional romance. Even Vivian had begun to thaw, especially after Myla charmed the entire board with her passionate presentation about environmental responsibility. "Mrs. Rodriguez brought over breakfast empanadas," Soraya said, gesturing to the covered plate. "She says they're for good luck." "We don't need luck." Daxton stole a quick kiss. "We have science on our side." "Right, Professor Myla?" Their daughter appeared in the doorway, wearing her specially designed lab coat with Junior Environmental Ambassador embroidered in purple thread. Her weather journal, now filled with months of detailed observations, was clutched proudly to her chest. "Ready?" she declared. "I practiced my speech all night with Grandma." Soraya's heart squeezed. They'd hung her mother's photo in the living room, and Myla often talked to it, sharing her day's adventures and scientific discoveries. Sometimes, in quiet moments, Soraya could almost hear her mother's delighted laughter echoing through their new home. The drive to Pierce Industries headquarters was filled with Myla's excited chatter about sustainable energy and the importance of weather pattern awareness. She'd thrown herself into learning everything about Project Rainbow, proudly explaining the initiative to anyone who would listen. The parking garage was already buzzing with activity when they arrived. Amara met them at the private elevator, tablet in hand, and smile warm. "The auditorium is full," she reported. "Press, environmental activists, city officials, everyone's here." And Laurel just arrived with the entire diner staff. "They closed the diner?" Soraya asked, surprised. "Apparently, your regular customers insisted on coming too. Something about supporting their favorite waitress turned environmental innovator." The elevator opened directly into a quiet preparation room. Through the windows, they could see the Seattle skyline bathed in unusual sunshine, as if the weather itself was celebrating with them. "Oh, look what I found in my office," Daxton said, pulling out a familiar paper. It was Myla's original drawing from the diner, 3 figures under an umbrella, now framed in simple silver. "Our first family portrait," Myla beamed. The word family no longer scared Soraya. It felt right, earned through months of choosing each other, working through fears, and building trust drop by drop like Seattle's endless rain. A gentle knock announced Miss Kennedy's arrival. "Sorry to interrupt, but all your former students are very excited to see their favorite weather scientist." Myla's entire class had been invited to the launch as special guests. The environmental education program would be piloted at their school first, another way of keeping their story grounded in community. 5 minutes, Amara called softly. Daxton knelt to Myla's level. "Ready to change the world, Professor." "Ready," she paused, then threw her arms around him. "I love you, Dad." The word hung in the air, new but natural, chosen rather than demanded. Daxton's eyes met Soraya's over their daughter's head, bright with emotion. "I love you too, sweetheart," he managed, voice rough. "Both of you, so much." Soraya joined their embrace, breathing in the moment. Outside, they could hear the auditorium filling, the future waiting. But here, in this quiet room, time seemed to pause. "I remember when you first got in my taxi," she asked softly. Best wrong turn I ever took, Daxton smiled. It wasn't wrong, Myla said with all the wisdom of her 6 years. It was science. Like when storm fronts meet and make something new and beautiful. Speaking of science, Amara interrupted gently, it's time. They walked toward the auditorium doors as a family. The CEO in his perfectly tailored suit, the former taxi driver in her elegant blue dress, and the tiny scientist whose love had helped bridge their worlds. Just before the doors opened, Soraya squeezed Daxton's hand. Thank you. For what? For seeing me, the real me. Not the waitress with the broken dreams or the taxi driver with the complicated life. Just me. Thank you for letting me. He touched the small velvet box in his pocket, a conversation for later, when today's excitement had settled. For showing me that sometimes the best views come after the storm. The doors opened to applause. Cameras flashed like lightning, but they no longer felt threatening. This was their story to tell, their future to build. Myla took the stage first, her voice clear and confident, as she explained how a simple prism had inspired a city-wide environmental initiative. Soraya and Daxton watched from the wings, hands clasped, hearts full. And you know the really cool thing about rainbows, Myla was saying. They're not just pretty, they're proof that something beautiful can come from rain and sun working together. Just like my mom and dad showed me that love isn't about where you come from or what you do. It's about choosing to see the beauty in all kinds of weather. In the front row, Mrs. Rodriguez wiped tears while Laurel whistled proudly. Vivian, seated with the board, wore an expression that might have been a smile. Even the press corps seemed moved by the sincerity of a child's wisdom. As Daxton stepped forward to outline the technical aspects of Project Rainbow, Soraya felt a familiar warmth in her chest. The same feeling she'd had that rainy night in her taxi, when fate or science or maybe just pure chance had brought them together. Later, after the speeches and celebrations, they would return to their home with its prism-scattered light and weather charts on the fridge. Myla would document the day's events in her journal, adding another chapter to their family story. And tonight, when the city lights twinkled like earthbound stars, Daxton would lead Soraya to their garden. Among the herbs she'd planted and the small weather station they'd built together, he would ask a question that wasn't really a question at all, because they'd already chosen each other, day after day, storm after storm. But for now, standing in the wings of an auditorium full of hope and possibility, Soraya watched her family shine. Outside, Seattle's faithful rain began to fall, soft and steady as a lullaby. Perfect rainbow weather. 1 year later, the backyard garden sparkled with tiny lights strung between the trees, their glow reflecting off hundreds of crystal prisms hanging like drops of captured starlight. Seattle had gifted them a rare, clear evening, perfect for celebrating Myla's 7th birthday. Soraya watched from the porch as her daughter, now sporting a lab coat with both Junior Environmental Ambassador and Lead Weather Scientist, embroidered in purple, demonstrated her latest weather station upgrades to an attentive audience. Project Rainbow's junior science program had expanded to schools across the Pacific Northwest, with Myla's original weather journal serving as a template for thousands of young environmental enthusiasts. She's got my board wrapped around her finger, Vivian remarked, joining Soraya with 2 glasses of champagne. Their relationship had evolved into something resembling respect, perhaps even friendship. 3 new environmental education initiatives approved this quarter alone. The future is in good hands, Soraya smiled, touching the simple but elegant ring on her finger. She and Daxton had married 6 months ago, a small ceremony in this very garden, with Myla officiating her own special scientific observation of love section. Mrs. Rodriguez's empanadas shared space with gourmet hors d'oeuvres on tables decorated with weather-themed centerpieces. Laurel, now managing partner at what everyone still called Soraya's Diner, though she only worked there occasionally for fun, was teaching Ms. Kennedy the finer points of perfect coffee preparation. "Mom! Dad!" Myla called out. "Come see what happened when we adjusted the barometric pressure sensors." Daxton appeared at Soraya's side, slipping an arm around her waist. Together, they joined their daughter by her beloved weather station, now a sophisticated setup that rivaled professional meteorological equipment. "And look what else!" Myla pointed excitedly to the western sky, where the setting sun had painted the clouds in brilliant colors. "A sundog, just like in my advanced weather phenomena book." As party guests gathered to admire the optical illusion, Soraya leaned into her husband's embrace. Did you ever think this would be our life?" she whispered. "Better than anything I could have imagined," he replied, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Though I do miss having you as my taxi driver. Please," she laughed. "You just miss my weather reports." Their gentle teasing was interrupted by the distinctive sound of raindrops, Seattle's ever-present reminder of where their story began. But no one ran for cover. Instead, Myla's voice rang out clear and excited. "Quick, get the prisms! It's perfect conditions for a double rainbow." And as their family and friends scattered across the garden, positioning crystals and scientific equipment with equal enthusiasm, Soraya thought about that rainy night that had changed everything, about love that came disguised as chance, about storms that brought unexpected gifts, about a little girl who saw magic in the science of weather and taught them all to believe in rainbows. Above them, right on cue, a perfect double rainbow arced across the darkening sky, nature's own celebration of a love story written in rain and light, in science and magic, in the countless small choices that added up to something extraordinary. Just another day in their perfectly imperfect paradise, where every storm brought the promise of rainbows, and every ending was just another beautiful beginning. The end. Based on this story of love and overcoming, here's a question. If you were in Soraya's shoes, would you have the courage to risk everything for love, even knowing that the whole world would be watching and judging your every move? How would you deal with media pressure, social differences, and the fear of getting hurt again, especially having to protect not only your heart, but also that of your daughter? Your participation in the channel is very important. Please leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment your thoughts. Your participation is very important to us. See you next time!